All right, guys, we are here with Steve Laws. Thank you for joining me.
No worries, mate.
If people don't know who you are, just tell a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself a little bit.
So, effectively, I'll probably be called a remigration activist these days. I've stood in elections, I've campaigned for remigration. I used to highlight illegal immigration and so forth. So, ultimately, just an anti-immigration activist to simplify. But we just want them all gone.
Okay. How did you kind of start doing this? Because I know you've been doing this for a long time. What were the steps leading up to that? What made you kind of jump into this and do what you do today?
So I didn't really intend on getting involved in any of this at all. Going back about 6 years ago now, it was the illegal immigration and the dinghies were flooding over and no one was really knowing anything about it. It wasn't covered on the media. So I'd go down the docks, I'd start filming it, I'd upload the footage online. And it sort of just grew from there. And then obviously, the more research you do, you realise illegal immigration is far worse. You start campaigning down that route, you lead everyone to understand the problems and the demographic changes we're facing. And then everything sort of snowballs to the point where we're at now.
Okay. So was it a single moment or was there a main moment that you could kind of pinpoint that kind of flipped the switch in your brain?
No, it's actually really petty. So I was talking to my friends. He didn't believe me that the illegals were coming over and getting loaded straight onto coaches. Me being petty, just went straight down there to prove a point. I was like, there you go, this is happening. He was like, oh my God, this is happening. Assumed loads of other people didn't, considering that was my friend who lived local. And then from there, it just sort of escalated. So there wasn't really a pinpoint in one single incident. It just sort of snowballed over time.
And this was 6 years ago?
About 7 years ago, yeah, give or take.
How old are you today?
I'm 34 now. I'm getting on a bit. Not like you guys.
34. So what is kind of your main focus now? What do you think the biggest problem in Britain is today?
Well, immigration is the biggest problem we face, pretty much all over Europe and in terms of the Western world. But ultimately, the main priority we need is remigration. Everyone in this country needs to get behind the idea of mass deportations. It doesn't matter if they're a foreign criminal, a legal immigrant, whether they was born here, they came over illegally. It's all irrelevant. They've all got to go. We're on the course to become a minority in our homeland. We're not going to tolerate that. Everyone's got to go until we can protect that.
Some people think British people can be black. Do you think they can be?
No, not a chance, mate. This is embarrassing. No, they can't now.
So what makes someone British?
Well, it's through ancestry and through blood and soil. That is what our people are. There's no denying this. It's simple fact. It's a law of nature. To say an African is English is just embarrassing. In fact, it's ridiculous and it's insulting as an Englishman for somebody to say that.
In these past 6 years, it seems like the tides have shifted a lot. Like even a figure like Tommy Robinson, I know you guys have had your back and forths, has gotten a lot more popular. He obviously holds some controversial views. Obviously, you don't agree with everything, probably a lot of what he does. But how much have the tides shifted these past, 6 years?
So I'd say even in just the last year, an awful lot. Since the Southport riots, an awful lot changed. So the demographic situation, people were very aware of it. They realised that even people that have come over as children and grown up and they're so-called integrated immigrants can go on and be a brutal murderer and stab 3 little girls and so forth. So ultimately, we've gained a lot of ground. The likes of Tommy Robinson, they're like a stepping stone. They do have their benefits, but they also lead an awful lot of people down the garden path. They promote Zionism, they put Maoris on stage doing the haka, they'll have immigrants and Indians and all sorts of people they bring over to these events. It's all funded by and so forth. So Tommy, I'm not his biggest fan, but the fact that he can be seen as a mainstream political figure now shows how much ground we've gained. Because a year ago, his name was taboo. You couldn't even mention it online and so forth. Now he's the safe option because everyone else is to the right of him.
How much of a difference do you see between the younger and older generation? Because I've talked to young people. They kind of, I understand what you're talking about. And they don't really agree with Tommy, but the older guys are like, yeah, deport the illegals, but the Indians who are nonviolent, they could stay. Do you think there is more hope for the younger generation, and can you switch older person's mind about some of these topics?
So there are the odd older generation that you can sort of work on and bring them over to our talking points, but a lot of these people are sort of very much cemented in their ways. If you're over 40, 50 years old, you're kind of secure in your politics and your ideology, you know what you stand for. And these people, as you've said, do stand for what we call civic nationalism, where they don't like the illegals, they don't like the foreign criminals, but if you come over legally and you're an Indian and you've got a little corner shop, they'll love you. They'll stand there, they'll dance around with you and they think it's amazing. But it's not, it's ridiculous. So back to the point is, ultimately, yes, there are the youth that are very much more radical. I'm very hopeful with the youth because from my experience, of course, this isn't the 100% of every single youngster in this country, because that would just be a lie. But the vast majority understand demographics. They understand that they have no future. They're not getting a pension. They'll be lucky to own a house. They're lucky to have any future at all. So when they realise that that's all they've got and that's their future, it makes these youngsters radical. They don't care whether you was born here. They don't care whether you're a nice immigrant. They want you gone because it's their future that's at stake.
What would you say to someone who says they don't see race?
They're because race sees them.
But I guess how could you convince someone, because obviously the brainwashing is strong, it is real, like all throughout the school system, oh, we're just different colors, everything about us is, the same. How can you convince someone of that, or at least lead them, give them a carrot to chase?
See, from my experience, the most people that have that viewpoint are people that lived in sheltered lifestyles, so they're not surrounded by the immigrants. They don't live amongst the multiracialism. They don't live amongst the violence, the thieving, the grooming gangs. They don't live amongst any of that. They don't see it in their day-to-day life. So to them, it doesn't exist. The only way these people will ever truly understand it is by living amongst it. The rest of us have seen it. We've all seen it growing up. We all know what it looks like. But these people, they haven't seen it. So there's the argument that you can show them. Even when you show them, they bury their head in the sand and they say, oh, it's just a one-off example, it's not all like that. So I kind of take the attitude that if you can't see it today, you're a write-off. Most people today understand it to an extent. They may not be quite where I'm at, but a lot of people understand that immigration is a problem. Numbers that are coming over is huge. The people that are coming over hate us. Most normal people can see that. So if they can't see that at this point, I wouldn't waste your time trying to work with them. I'd only work with the people that are on their journey, because let's be clear, there's more of those than there are of the others.
What steps do we have to take to get ourselves out of this situation? Because, the Muslims, the Indians, they're breeding like rabbits, right? They have like 8 kids each. And then if you look at the European birth rates, it's like 1.5 per woman. So is it even possible to reverse that, or is it too late?
No, it's never too late. It's very much possible. It's just got to be done in stages. So at the moment, the general public, in terms of what's safe and okay to support, they support the deportation of all illegal immigrants, regardless of when they come over. They deport all of the foreign criminals. That's what I would call stage 1 of remigration. So once all of that's been carried out, that gives us a little bit of breathing room. It doesn't make a huge difference in terms of demographic change because the legal immigrants are the problem, but it does create a sort of environment where people are okay with deportations. They go, oh, it's not too bad. This person's gone home now. We didn't really notice any difference. Then they'll start looking at legal immigration and go, there's still the problem there. We're going to have to get rid of these people. And it's a case of doing it stage by stage. If you start going around and say, although I'm quite guilty of this because I try to drag the window, but if you're trying to sell it to someone who doesn't understand immigration, that they've all got to go from day one, they're not going to listen to you. But if you break it down into barriers and you say, this person's got to go because, look, there's foreign criminals here. These people that are not even working, why are they in our country? They're just taking all our resources. And you start going down these avenues, people understand what you're talking about, and they start supporting it. And it doesn't sound so radical, but it's just a case of getting that first stage over the line, which is deporting all the illegal immigrants. Even left-wing Labour government we've got now are starting to deport illegal immigrants, so that ball's rolling. Once that hurdle's been jumped over, then it's anyone's business. I would never say it's too late, nowhere near. We're still 74% of the population. We've got a long time yet.
How did we get to this point? How did the powers that be convince the general person that they should be guilty of being white? You were colonizers, you owned slaves. How did we get to this point? And kind of, I guess, what are the first steps someone can take to kind of get out of that mindset?
So you could discuss this all day long, really, couldn't you, on how it started and who's behind it and so forth. But ultimately, it's propaganda that's the main priority towards this, and then that ripples through to the schools, into the unions, into the workplaces, into the every sort of environment, and then there creates a culture, because that narrative's so set in stone, creates a culture that anyone steps outside of that is seen as a radical and seen as a racist and extremist, and it sort of group thinks that person to not speak like that, because everyone will turn on them and go, you can't say that, how dare you say that, and then everyone else listens to that and thinks, I better not say that, I don't want to be the outsider in the group. And it's sort of that sort of mentality that snowballed throughout an entire nation until we've reached a point we've reached now where entire generations are turning back and saying, no, we reject all of this. Whether there's truth to any of it or not is irrelevant. Everyone just rejects it outright and wants everything gone, reversed back to what it should have been like, where it should be just our people in our country, putting our people first. And that's kind of what's going to happen. But in terms of how you reverse it and how you change everyone's mindset, if I had the answer, mate, we'd already be fixed.
Yeah. What would you do with the people who have like mixed kids or like they're partially British? What's the threshold? Like where do the people who are, mixed with everything go?
So this one gets me in trouble, so I have to be careful how I answer this. Ultimately, I don't care whether you're mixed race or not, because I don't see you as fully English. Whether that's controversial or not, I don't care. If you've got a Jamaican father or an African father or a Chinese father, you're Chinese. You may have an English mother, but you are not English. You're something else. If you have a German Shepherd and a Labrador, you breed the two together. You do no longer have a German Shepherd or a Labrador. You have something different entirely. And my problem is with this, whilst yes, it's a small minority of the country at the moment, if this demographic climbs and increases and starts becoming 5-10% of the population, there's serious questions that need to be asked. So ultimately, yes, we have to nip this in the bud. Personally, I would deport them if I had the power, but I wouldn't go out the streets and campaign to get rid of everyone, because it's a non-starter from day one. I always say, if we can get to a 95% white Britain, I'd be happy with that. I wouldn't be dancing over the moon, but I wouldn't have to go out on the streets and campaign against this no more.
What are the biggest differences racially in between us? Is it skin color?
No. Skin colour is just a minute factor of this. It's behaviour, it's IQ, it's everything down to diet, down to bone structure. There's a lot more of it. Of course, skin colour is different as well, and that's the obvious factor, and that's where everyone goes, oh my God, he's black, he's white, you hate him because he's black. Technically, yes, but not because of the colour of their skin. It's because of their behaviour and the way they act, and they shouldn't be in our country. I wouldn't care, right, if you was an African and you was in Africa. You do you, mate. I don't care. That's where you should be. But when you're in the UK and you're sitting here and you're doing all your tribal dances and you're eating all your jafali rice and stuff, and then you're telling us that we should be apologising to you because of our past, and it's like, no, we're very proud of our past. We'd do it again. It's like, why are you here? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You can go down the IQ arguments and you can go down every other argument, but the reality is every race has their own continent for a reason. It should stay like that.
What do you say to people who say this is like a natural process of evolution and eventually everyone's just going to have to, merge together?
It's not natural because it's forced. This isn't something that's happening naturally. It's not like people are just randomly arriving in the UK because they went for a stroll. These people are being encouraged and brought to the UK on the promise of incentives and housing and so forth. This isn't something that's happening naturally. If it was something that's happening naturally, we could put barriers in place to stop it.
Okay. What are some things you are working personally in the future? Tell us about it.
So right now I'm working on a group called Remigration Now. It's basically an activist pressure group campaigning on total remigration. So we take the hard line of everyone's got to go, and then people can sort of backstep it a little bit, and they can sort of make a safe space for everyone to move the window along a little bit. There's enough political parties in the movement at the moment. There's so many. They all say the same thing. Not one of them is willing to deport everyone. Yeah. Not one of them is willing to support total remigration. Even the base nationalist parties are not even at that stage. So I don't see it as there's any time being worth putting into a political party at the moment, strictly because Reform have got their next election covered at 29. After then is the time you want to start thinking about a nationalist party. But for the next 3 years, nationalists should be focusing on drumming remigration into the mainstream.
Okay. And what can the average British person do to help out? They understand what we're talking about. They agree with us or with you, not us. What would you say to them?
So ultimately, they've got to. The main thing is talking to people in real life. So if you can win over one person in a conversation, say you're at work and you're talking amongst your workmates, win that person over to the conversation, get involved in protests, get involved in activism. If there's a politician that's calling for deportations in your area, support that politician. You might not agree with everything they're saying, and elsewhere they may say a lot of nonsense, but if they're calling for deportations, let's put that person in a position where they can actually act on that. So it's just little, small sort of acts of activism that will encourage more people to get active.
Okay. And if anybody wants to find your work, where can they find you?
Just Twitter, Steve Laws. I don't even know what my username is. Yeah, Steve Laws. Okay. You'll find me. Yeah. Cheers, buddy.
Thanks for the conversation. Steve Laws, everybody.